Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Mark, a trainer here at WEX Field Service Management, and today we are covering QuickBooks Sync Training. This webinar will cover what is QuickBooks Sync. We'll go over one-way sync items versus two-way sync items, the differences between QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop Sync. We'll talk about the sync tool, syncing customers, invoices, and payments, your back office settings, where to find training on sync, and then just some sync tips and best practices. We'll do a live Q&A at the end where you can get your questions answered live on stream. And the first topic we're going over is, what is QuickBooks Sync as it relates to WEX FSM? So WEX FSM integrates with QuickBooks. We sync data like your customers, your invoices, your payment history, and this will eliminate the need for double entry. As you're running your business, there's a lot going on. You will enter those items into WEX FSM, and those will sync down to your QuickBooks. But there are some nuances, and that's what we will be going over today. There are two versions of QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop, and it is important for you to know the difference between a one-way sync item and a two-way sync item. So let's get into that. One-way sync items will sync one way from WEX FSM to QuickBooks. This includes your customers, invoices, and payments. If you enter those items after you've made the switch, if you enter those items into QuickBooks, they will not sync up to WEX FSM. So right now, depending on where you're at in onboarding, if you are, brand new, you've just signed up, you are most likely still entering into your previous software while you learn the basics of the software and get your data loaded. So if you're still in onboarding, what I'm talking about now is more after you've made the switch, you've already loaded everything, and you are officially using WEX FSM as your main software. Once you've made the switch, after that make the switch date, this is what you will want to follow. Customers, invoices, and payments, enter those into WEX FSM first, and those will sync down to QuickBooks. In, let's say, a scenario, you enter something into QuickBooks and not into WEX FSM, it will not sync up to WEX FSM, and you would then want to either delete that from QuickBooks and then enter it into WEX FSM, leave the sync on, and that will sync down to your QuickBooks. That way it doesn't create a duplicate. Or you would keep that in QuickBooks, enter it into WEX FSM, but then turn the sync off. That way it doesn't sync down and create a duplicate. I'd highly recommend doing the first way because if you have the sync off, if you do make any adjustments to that in WEX FSM, the sync will be off. So that won't sync down and update your document in QuickBooks. So rule of thumb, customers, invoices, and payments. Write it on a sticky note to remember, but those are the items you're going to enter into WEX FSM first. However, there are some two-way sync items, and those are items that you can update in both softwares. That would include things like your back office settings, your chart of accounts, taxes, tax groups, and your QuickBooks item list. We are going to take a look at what that looks like in the system in just a little bit, but just so you know, those items you can update in both places. Let's say you use your QuickBooks item list for pricing, and you've used that for many years. Your item list will sync up to WEX FSM, and you can manage, update pricing, update names, descriptions, etc. in QuickBooks, and that will sync up, and you'll see that reflected when you access your QuickBooks item list in WEX FSM. Syncing to QuickBooks Desktop. So like we said, there's two versions of QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. I guess as a disclaimer, I don't have it on the screen here, but Intuit, the company that creates QuickBooks as a software, has discontinued QuickBooks Desktop, and they are no longer supporting QuickBooks Desktop. We are still supporting QuickBooks Desktop. Many of our customers use QuickBooks Desktop, so we still have a way for you to sync to that software. Just know moving forward, maybe you don't have QuickBooks yet and you're thinking about getting it, you will be getting QuickBooks Online because they are phasing out QuickBooks Desktop from the Intuit side. But we still support it here. So if you are a QuickBooks Desktop user, don't worry, we have a way for you to sync. With that being said, QuickBooks Desktop does require a sync tool. The sync tool is what allows WEX FSM and QuickBooks Desktop to communicate, and it must be installed. That application, that sync tool, must be installed to your computer with your main QuickBooks file before you make the switch. So that is an important thing to have set up before you actually make the switch and turn on the sync. If you don't do that, the systems won't be able to communicate. The QuickBooks Desktop requires the sync tool. Now, I'll also show you where to find this later. We'll run into it when we get into the training. But to install the sync tool, you'll go to the Help Center, which is the little smiley face guy you may have noticed in the bottom right of the screen when you're logged in to WEX FSM. And you'll go to your QuickBooks Sync Training, and there's a link that will allow you to sign up for a sync tool install. A member of our team will join you in a Zoom call. They take over your screen, install it for you, show you how to use it. So you're not alone there, but you are the one who will need to schedule that meeting. And I'll show you exactly where to find that in just a little bit. Now, the way the sync tool works, here's actually a visual of where to go. There's a little Help Center icon in the bottom right of your screen. You'll click on Tasks and then QuickBooks Sync Training. From there, you'll see the very first module is Install Sync Tool, and click this link. Now, if you're QuickBooks Online, you don't have to worry about this. We'll get into that. But for QuickBooks Desktop, you will have a place to find this link where you can then schedule your training. Now, to prepare for a sync tool install, you will want your admin username and password for both WEX FSM and QuickBooks Desktop, and use the computer with your main QuickBooks Desktop file on it. During your meeting, the WEX FSM rep will ask you for, they'll have you log in. So you'll need to know your info. They will have you log in the tool with your username and password for both WEX FSM and QuickBooks. And then if you're using a server and you know that your QuickBooks Desktop file is located on a server, not on your computer hard drive, let the rep know, because they'll need to know where that file is so they can connect the sync tool to the QuickBooks Desktop file. Once you have the sync tool downloaded, that is what allows you to sync. You can turn on the auto sync feature. There's a button where you will click auto sync, and it will ask if you want 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or once per day for the sync schedule, and it will just sync in those intervals. So let's say you choose every 15 minutes, you go in and add a new customer, you take a payment, whatever item you're doing. At the 15-minute mark, that will then start a sync. Any updates you've made in your system will then sync down to QuickBooks. And then for QuickBooks Online, that is different. That does not require a sync tool. Everything is synced via the cloud. So with that, there's no meeting that you need to do. when you signed up, you most likely already submitted your initial data load and you provided your QuickBooks Online credentials to our data team. So after you've made the switch, we'll turn on the sync and then it will just sync automatically every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day. So there's no way for you to manually sync like you can do with the sync tool with QuickBooks Desktop. And it's just going to sync every 10 minutes. But that's great. You're going to update in your system. The sync is going to be happening every 10 minutes in the background. And then when you go to your QuickBooks, you will see those items. Now, a little detail, getting a little more nuanced on how this works. The sync does happen every 10 minutes, but it will only sync up to 30 objects or items. And what that means is, let's say that I have an invoice that has 50 items on it. Or I guess a better example would be, let's say that I have created customers and invoices and payments, and I have made over 30 items within 10 minutes. The sync will sync up to 30 items, and those will be things like invoices, individual line items on invoices, customer profiles, payments, income account changes, tax changes, class changes, things like that. So it's not really a big issue. It would be very difficult for you to maintain more than 30 items every 10 minutes all day. So while the sync is happening, just know if you enter something or you change something, 10 minutes later, you go and look in your QuickBooks and it's not there. My recommendation, just wait. It will most likely go in the next batch and then you'll see it there. But it's not unlimited as it is syncing in terms of how much it will sync per 10 minutes. But by the end of the day, everything will have synced over. But I do like to point that out just so you know. If you notice that something is not syncing and it's been over 24 hours, you enter a new customer, you go into QuickBooks, it's not there, you wait till tomorrow, you look, it's still not there, then I would reach out to customer care and ask and see what's going on with that sync. So the biggest differences between the two, QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. QuickBooks Desktop requires a sync tool and does allow manual syncing. QuickBooks Online, there is no sync tool. Everything is cloud-based, but there's no manual sync option. It just happens automatically. And next is you need to know the difference, right, between one-way sync and two-way sync, which we covered. But there are places where you can check the sync statuses in your system. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dive into WEX FSM and go take a look at where you can check sync statuses and understand what is actually syncing and where you'll see that in your system. Let's switch over now to WEX FSM. Okay. When you log into your system, it will bring you to the schedule page. Now, one-way sync items we know are customers, invoices, and payments. So if we wanted to check where those items are, for customers, we're going to go to the main navigation in the top left, and right here it says customers. It's right next to schedule. Click on that. That will bring you to the customers page. And this is your entire customer list. This will be a big, long Rolodex, if you will, of all of your customers. And there's a couple things to note from here. Number one, these are one-way sync items. So you'll want to enter your customers into WEX FSM first. To add a new customer, you will click the plus button in the top right, and then enter the information and hit save. Once you have added the customer, they will then be added to your customer list. And then depending on which version of QuickBooks you have, it will sync down in that interval. And then you'll see that in your QuickBooks. But you can also check the sync status right here. So the auto sync status, this column with all these little green buttons, this is letting you know the status of the sync. And those statuses will include ready, which means it's ready to sync. Error means something is missing that is preventing it from syncing. Syncing means it's in the process of syncing. And then synced means it has officially synced, and now you'll see that in your QuickBooks. This is also where you will delete and merge customers. If I want to delete a customer, I will click on the customer and click delete. Now, if you delete it from WEX FSM, that will sync down and also delete it from QuickBooks. So, we're always wanting to have a one-to-one comparison between what is in both systems. To merge a customer, you will select two accounts and click merge. Now, this is important. There is an order of operations here when you're merging, and it lets you know right here. Please confirm this merge has been completed in QuickBooks before merging in WEX FSM, right? So the warning says not performing this merge in QuickBooks will result in sync errors if the master customer selected in QuickBooks is not the same as the master selected in WEX FSM. So of course, we want it to be the same in both systems. Let's say I have two customers in WEX FSM and two customers in QuickBooks. The way that you would want to merge this is to first pick who you want the parent to be or the master. Make sure that you do the merge first in QuickBooks with the same master that you will have in WEX FSM. That way now we have just the master in QuickBooks. Then in WEX FSM, you'll select both, select the master, and then do the merge. Now you'll have a one-to-one comparison, the master here, the master there, and when it syncs, there's no confusion. That'll sync down, and the merge has been completed. So there is an order of operations, but it's very easy. Just know if I'm going to merge them in QuickBooks first, then merge in WEX FSM. Make sure you have the same master in both. Okay. So next, let's look at invoices. If you create an invoice, and we're actually going to go to jobs, invoice list. So jobs, invoice list. This is exactly what it says. It's a big list of all of your invoices. And when you create an invoice in WEX FSM, you do need to add line items to it in order for it to sync. If you create an invoice and you do not add line items, the sync will not begin. It won't be considered a syncable item. So you will want to create the invoice, add line items, even if they're free, even if they're $0, the line item itself is the thing that will actually allow the sync to happen. But once you do create that invoice with line items, it will be saved in your WEX FSM system and then sync down to your QuickBooks. And that will be a one-to-one comparison. You'll see the invoice number, the customer name, the line items, the details. It'll create a new invoice in your QuickBooks, and it'll be a QuickBooks invoice, but it'll have all the same information. Now from here, you can also check sync statuses and do sync troubleshooting as well. So right now, if we look, we can see auto sync is here, and these all say ready, and they're green. So these are ready to sync. These are good to go. But if I wanted to see, are there any that are not ready? Select your sync status, not ready. And here we go. Here are a ton of items that are not syncing. And what's really nice about this is it is very easy to tell why it's not syncing. The system lets you know, and you can do your own troubleshooting without needing to reach out to customer care. So if you see something like this, it says not ready, that means it is not syncing. And we want it to sync. So how would we fix this? We click on details and it will simply let you know. Just read what it says. To update the tax group, please change the invoice status to open draft. Oh, you know what? This is actually a good teachable moment here. So this, let's see if it'll let us do it. So this is saying you must select an account for this to sync. This item, large install, someone did not select a income account for this, so it doesn't know where to sync in your QuickBooks. So we will want to select where that's going and click save. And let's take a look at this one, details. Same thing, income account. Select that and hit save. Now, in theory, as long as you have all the information that the sync wants, it will sync fine. You won't even have to think about it. But what I'm going to assume is happening here, and this is just a pro tip for those of you who work in the office and work with the field technicians. If a field technician creates an invoice and they add items from the price book, all of those items will have an income account selected already. So the sync will know where to go. The items will sync, the invoice will sync, it'll be great. But if your technician creates a custom line item and they don't choose a income account, that's where you'll find an error. So you'll want to communicate to your technicians either number one, hey, don't make custom line items, just use the price book, or they can create custom line items, but they need to know what income account to choose when they create that item because they're essentially making a fresh item from scratch. So the system won't know automatically where it needs to sync. So you can do all of your troubleshooting right from here. But of course, if you have questions or you run into an error that you're not really sure what to do with, you can always click on our help center, the smiley face guy, and reach out to customer support. Just contact support right here and you can get some help. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to click details. It'll literally have exactly what you need prepped and ready for you. Tap save, and it's good to go. So that is invoices. And those, just as a reminder, are a one-way sync item. So after you've made the switch, do not create invoices in QuickBooks. Create them in WEX FSM first, and they will sync down and make the proper invoice in your QuickBooks system. Okay. And then our last one-way sync item we're talking about today is payments. We're going to go to Jobs, Payment List. And the payment list, same as the invoice list, is a big list of all your payments. As you take a payment in your system, that will be entered into WEX FSM first, and then that will sync down to your QuickBooks. Just like the other pages, you can see your auto sync statuses right here. And you can search by payment type, by payment method, by payment status, or you can search for payments here. And there's a couple ways you can search: customer name, payer name, and even the amount. You have amount on a sticky note, you're not sure what invoice it's connected to, just type that here and you can search. For these payments, you do have a little caret here. If you click on that, it'll give you a drop down to give you the invoice, which you can click on the PDF icon to see the invoice and the payment applied. And then you can also click on the 3 dots to edit the payment, change the payment to a new customer, refund it, or delete the payment. And that is payments. Now let's move on to our two-way sync items. So those are items that you can enter into both systems and they will update vice versa. First, let's go to settings in the top right and accounting and taxes. And these here are going to be sort of your back office settings. This will tell you, well, first it'll tell you what version of QuickBooks you have, whether or not you are syncing. If your sync is off and you're wanting to sync, reach out to customer care and let them know, like, this needs to be on in order for the sync to work properly. And then here are those items. These would be pulled directly from your QuickBooks. So if you see something in here that is something you maybe have never seen before, it was hiding in your QuickBooks because we don't add anything extra in these sections. So classes, accounts, inventory part accounts, and tax settings are two-way sync items. You can like organize these, update these in QuickBooks, and it will update up to WEX FSM. Now, an important detail, however, in tax settings, so this is a little nuance of the two-way sync, and that is if you have tax collection turned on and auto lookup tax rate by zip tax turned off, then that will be an exact one-to-one comparison of your tax groups from your QuickBooks in WEX FSM. No tax groups will be added, nothing will be changed. It will be exactly what you have in your QuickBooks, which a lot of my customers love. They're like, don't touch my taxes. However, we do have this. It's helpful for some scenarios, and that is auto lookup tax rate through zip tax. Especially if you're newer to using QuickBooks and maybe you don't have a lot of tax groups created, this will it will populate tax groups based on zip codes. And so what this will do, if zip tax is turned on, if I create an invoice, zip tax will look up the zip code of the job that I'm doing and then apply taxes based on that zip code. And if that tax group doesn't already exist, it will create a new one. And so you will notice that there are new tax groups and those will sync down to your to your QuickBooks if you're using zip tax. So there, if you don't want that to happen, you will just want to make sure that that is turned off. Because you'll be in your QuickBooks, you'll see a bunch of new tax groups and you'll go, how in the world did that get there? And this is how. If you have zip tax turned on, it will be creating new tax groups for you. Now, that is a benefit if you don't have that built out, and it will be correct because it's pulling by zip code. But we all know some states, they got weird tax situations going on, and maybe you've got it fine-tuned over the years. You don't want it touched. Make sure that this is off. Okay, so that is two-way sync items for your accounting and taxes. Let's look at some other two-way sync items. We're going to go to settings, jobs, payment terms. Settings, jobs, payment terms. Payment terms are the terms and agreements on how long someone has to pay you. And if you're doing a lot of single family home residential work, you'll most likely have due on receipt as your default. I come out, I fix your AC, you pay me. Very simple. Maybe you're doing a lot of new construction and working for commercial companies. Maybe you're setting those to a more net 30, net 60. Whatever the terms you have with when you want to get paid, you can come here and see what has already been added or synced from your QuickBooks. It'll be a one-to-one comparison here. And you can also add new payment terms. Maybe you want to do a net 90 and that's not here yet. So you can click new payment terms, enter the name of those terms and how many days they have to pay, and click save. That will then create a new payment term in WEX FSM and sync down to QuickBooks. Since this is a two-way sync item, you can also just manage these in your QuickBooks and it will sync up to WEX FSM. The last two-way sync item we're going to look at is actually on an invoice. And so let me back out just a little bit. If you create an invoice, which is what I've done here, we are on the invoice itself. And I want to use my QuickBooks item list because that's where all my pricing lives. We've used the QuickBooks item list for years, let's say in this scenario, and I will click add item, and that will bring up all my price books. And if you're syncing to QuickBooks, your QuickBooks item list will be in this tab here. Now, the item list is something that is a two-way sync item, and you can edit these in your QuickBooks. So if you've been using your QuickBooks item list for years and that's how you get your pricing, and you're not planning on building out a price book in WEX FSM, that's fine. Just know that this is the only place you would access this in WEX FSM. Showing you the difference, the WEX FSM price book has a home, and you can edit and update your price book. You can create folders. There is more organization that you can have for your WEX FSM price book. However, if you already know that your item list is what you use, maybe your field technicians even know the numbers by heart and can search for these, that's great. You literally will just type in what you're looking for and it'll pull it up. You click on it and add it. Very simple. However, if you're noticing that you would like a little more customization, a little more organization, maybe you will want to go to more applications, price book, my price book, and build out your price book here in the WEX FSM price book. But your QuickBooks item list will be found on invoices under the QuickBooks item list tab. And any updates you make in QuickBooks will update here in WEX FSM. Okay. And so now let's look at where you can find your training. This will be the last section that we go over before we get into our Q&A. So get your questions ready. And, if you want to learn more about Sync, we have a lot of resources for you. You can click in the Help Center, the little smiley face guy here. And then where it says Help, click on that. And you can just type in QuickBooks. And all of our knowledge articles are here. You can also watch the replay of today's session if you would like by going to video courses and webinars. Scroll down and past webinars right here, QuickBooks Sync Training. I always update the most recent version by the end of the day that I do the session. Okay. So there you have it. That is all of our information that we have for today's presentation. I hope you guys learned something. We're going to move to our Q&A now, but I just want to say thank you so much for joining. My name is Mark with WEX Field Service Management, and this has been QuickBooks Sync Training.